Hello and welcome back to my channel. It seems that face masks are going to be a part of the foreseeable future for any sort of responsible human because we're trying to protect ourselves from COVID-19. And I decided today that we would do, makeup for wearing a mask, which means pretty much we're just going to focus on my eye area. And I'm not going to put on foundation or anything because I really don't want makeup that can really transfer to a mask because we're trying to keep these as clean as possible. So this is a mask that was made out of some material bought at Michael's, and my mom made it. I also have another one, but it's actually in my purse for if and when I leave the house again someday. Now, it is important to remember that we are still in a global pandemic, so you should not be leaving your house unless it's essential. Still, I know things are opening back up again, and I know, you're sort of starting to be allowed to go a couple of places, but you're really still not supposed to go out unless you need to. So if you need to go to the grocery store, that's essential. If you need to go to the pharmacy, that's essential. If you need to fight for the human rights of Black people, that is also essential. I have been struggling with doing a video on the current state of the world, if you will, for a while because I feel like as a white woman, it's not my place to talk about it. I can't sit here and tell you about the history of racism in Canada. I can't sit here and tell you about, the history of racism in America. I actually have told you the story before, but I am embarrassed to say that I was a whole 20 years old before I knew that residential schools happened in Canada. Like, I had no idea. If you had said residential school to me beforehand, I would have had no idea what that meant. It was until I was an adult working in the news field that I had any idea that happened. Hey, cool, the education system failed me as a white person. Great. That is a whole story for another day. But I feel like, I was just going to keep sharing places that you can, sign petitions and places that you can donate, because that's what I've been doing, and sharing other creators' content and lifting those voices and that sort of thing. And I will continue to do that. But something that has been said quite a bit that makes my blood boil beyond imaginable levels is people who seem to be equating things like family get-togethers and barbecues to protests. I cannot physically imagine, it's so alien to me that a human being can be so abhorrent and self-centered and just terrible, just the worst person to be commenting on these protests that are going on and saying, I can't have a barbecue with my family, but these protests are allowed to go on. How can you miss the point so incredibly completely? First of all, protests are never necessarily allowed to happen. They just happen. It's a way of standing up to injustices. And in a lot of places, especially in the States, police are actively trying to shut them down with tear gas and beating the shit out of people, as we see. So I wouldn't necessarily agree that they're allowed to happen. Just putting that out there. And the other thing is, racial injustices and COVID-19 aren't necessarily related. It just so happens that during COVID-19, this global pandemic, there were 2 high-profile cases in America of Black people being murdered by police. It just happened that these 2 happened back to back during COVID-19 and sparked these protests and all that. And I'm hoping that people that are going to these protests are wearing their masks, are bringing hand sanitizer, are also trying to prevent COVID-19, but all the power to them. You can't, the justice, not like the justice system, because I know that that's corrupt and messed up in a lot of ways as well, but justice as a whole can't stop because there's a global pandemic. You can't just stop, you can't stop caring about people because there's a pandemic. And it's so bizarre to me how people can say, I have seen comments of people being like, well, I'll just have all my family over and put a Black Lives Matter sign in the front yard and then the police won't shut it down. Could you imagine saying that? Get your head out of your ass. I don't know how to teach people that they should care about other people. That's what I'm saying. Black people have been saying and are saying now that they are being murdered in the streets by police officers. And what they are doing is asking not to be. I don't know how you can equate them asking not to be murdered to your family get togethers. That is the epitome of white privilege. And it it turns my stomach to even think about humans saying stuff like that. Honestly, it drives me insane. And I know everyone keeps talking about George Floyd, as they should. I still can't believe that that man lost his life because someone thought he had used a fake $20 bill. Could you imagine even if he had used a fake $20 bill? Is that a crime punishable by death? No. But Breonna Taylor, she hasn't got the publicity that George has. And I just think about her sleeping in her bed and police officers just breaking in and killing her. A no-knock arrest warrant, and they were at a completely different address looking for people who had already been arrested. What a senseless death of a beautiful girl who was about to be a nurse. Her case, I don't even know. I don't even have words. Like, that's fucked up. And as of me shooting this, I don't think the police officers who killed her have been arrested yet, which is mind-boggling to me. If I just busted into someone's house and shot them for, I don't know, just because, I'd be arrested. I doubt they can use the self-defense plea that guy tried to use when whatever happened to Sandra Bland happened to her. You know, he says he was scared for his life because, I don't know, this woman had a cell phone. I don't understand. And he had a stun gun, and Sandra Bland is another one of those stories that I want to think about it, but if I think about it for too long, I will just burst into tears because that's terrifying. If you have not read the story of Sandra Bland, I advise you look it up because she was pulled over by police because she failed to signal when she was changing lanes. And she was a very, so smart. If you've ever seen any of the videos she's posted and that sort of thing, a lot of them get reposted. She was so intelligent and so well spoken and so smart, and she knew to take a little video of this police officer arresting her, and he's, saying, I'm gonna blow you, or I'm gonna blow you up, or I'm gonna whatever, because he's got his stun gun, and he's screaming at her like she's got a bomb strapped to her or something, but she's just a woman in a car who he decided to pull over because she failed to signal when she was changing lanes. I can't believe that police in the States are using tear gas on protesters. That's banned in wars, is it not? And somehow they're just using it on protesters? Alright, cool. Hi, me again, editing, and I just wanted to insert a clip here because I was so worked up shooting this video that I forgot to mention a whole little bit that I had intended to mention, and that is just the frustrating fact that it seems to be a lot of the same people who are trivializing the societal state right now and people of color fighting for their right to live. A lot of those same people are the ones who, were protesting just a few weeks ago because they couldn't get their hair cut. And it's a lot of those same people who say they won't wear a mask to the grocery store. And I just don't understand. I don't understand. I wish I had a more eloquent way of speaking because the truth is, it just doesn't compute in my head. I just don't understand how you can prioritize getting your hair cut, first of all, in general, because we're in a global pandemic right now. You're allowed to look a little disheveled, okay? So, how you can prioritize that in general, but then how you can prioritize that and somehow think that that is a more valid thing to protest for than the lives of black people. And then how you can also not even want to protect yourself or other people by wearing a mask when you leave your house. This is something that really matters. And I don't understand how a human being can not want to be on the right side of history with any current issue, but especially this one, because people of color have been talking about police brutality forever because it's been affecting them for forever. How could you not want to stand behind them right now? And I don't think we had the haircut protests as bad in Canada as some of the states did, but I just think about some of those pictures of the people protesting because they wanted things to reopen, and just some of the hatred and like the vitriol on their faces as they stand there with their massive guns that nobody needs. And not only are they there and they actually think that protesting because they want, you know, the most aggressive first world problems, like the most capitalistic things to reopen, but how they had guns and weapons and stuff with them and were met with nothing, and then protesters who in most cases have no weapons are met with nothing but violence, and the people who are protesting that are being met with violence are protesting for an actual cause, something that actually matters. Anyway, back to the regular video. So next I'm just going to take my contour shade and I'm just going to do like a whole one eyeshadow look with just one color. I come from a particular place of privilege. My parents never had to have a talk with me about how to interact with police officers. They never had to teach me how to act around them. They never had to, no hands in the pockets, no hood up, none of that. But I want any person of color watching my channel to know that I hear them and I'm with them. There is a protest / rally of sorts locally this weekend. There was a big one in Niagara Falls last weekend. I wish I could have gone to that one, but Niagara Falls is a little far for me, especially when, I'm in a wheelchair and come drive. But this one that's here this weekend is closer to me, so I could go. And there's a little part of me that's afraid, only because I'm small and in a wheelchair and, in theory, more susceptible to COVID-19. But I just feel like this is too important for me to not go. It's too important to me to not go. I just don't understand how there are people out there who can look at the evidence and just not believe it. Who can look at George Floyd and be like, well, it is what it is. How come they can have protests if I can have a barbecue? I just can't imagine being like so far up your own ass that that's what you think. And I think if I can, in one of my own ways that I can maybe help and do a little bit better, even though, I realize that I don't have a particularly massive platform or whatever, but I just feel like if you can do something in it anyway, and I think I have the Josie Marin review, like her foundation review going up either next week or the week after. But I think after that, like once I start doing newer videos, I always mention the shade range and whether I think it's good or bad. But I think I'm going to start making it more of a deal breaker, because the reality of the situation is I can find my shade in almost any foundation because of how pale I am. But I think of some of my favorite dark-skinned YouTubers like Ohema Bonsu and Nima Tang, and if there is no chance in hell that they can use makeup from a line that I'm using, maybe I shouldn't be using it, Maybe that's not the type of thing that I want to support. And in my own small way, maybe that's what we'll do. Which I understand is realistically something I should have done to begin with, but better late than never, I suppose. I think my favorite thing about masks being like part of our lives now is that I don't have to put lipstick on anymore when I'm going out, because like I used to always forget because I'm always eating, and then I would end up coming home from wherever I was and realize that I looked silly the whole time because my whole makeup that was done, but I didn't have anything on my lips. But now we don't have to worry about that anymore, do we? So basically, and then what you do is you take the little mask that your mom made over the nose, behind the ears, and there. If I hadn't been talking, that makeup would have taken me 4 minutes instead of 20, which is what my camera is telling me it took. So yeah, anyway, doing my eye makeup for masks was my excuse to talk about everything else that we discussed in this video. Of course, I will be leaving links in the description box for petitions you can sign and places you can donate and that sort of thing, places you can go for more information on anything that we discussed in this video. And I really appreciate you for watching this video, and I really appreciate your support. And I guess I will see you next time. Bye!